So I'm here to introduce the first of two speakers I'll introduce, and it gives me great pleasure to first introduce Lisa Townsley, who's joining us from the University of Georgia. Lisa is one of the most passionate, vocal, and probably informed WebAssign users that I've run across. In fact, I went to visit her in her office about a year ago, and I was struck by, the whiteboard, as you would expect in a mathematician's office, was filled with all sorts of equations and obvious effort of work. And then there was this corner reserved for WebAssign, and I thought, so that's how she gets to each of us. And she had all of sort of these key phone numbers listed out, which is great. It's users like Lisa that really help us to continue to push WebAssign forward in the right direction. Lisa's been running the pre-calculus program at the University of Georgia since 2008, and she handles a large volume of students. And they're doing some really interesting things in this high-stakes testing environment that she's going to talk about. She's been working with technology and trying to get students involved in just really engaging in the materials since, she tells me, early 90s with Derive. So Lisa's been through a lot of different technology systems, is a passionate educator, a great user of ours at WebAssign, and it gives me pleasure to introduce her to you. Lisa?
Okay, so for me, the problem with being microphoned is I have to do two things: talk slow and talk low, because I know how my voice magnifies with the pitch I'm in. I want to give a shout out, since they're in live stream, to my 86-year-old father who's techno-savvy and is watching. I'm at the University of Georgia, and I want to run through some things. I have copies of my slides in the folder, so if you want to skip to the last slide and log into WebAssign and play and not listen, I won't know. I want to tell you the shape of mathematics at UGA, in particular what we do with online assessment, writing and selecting our test questions, how aggregate data helps us, and the security issues that go with using high-stakes testing. By that I mean testing for the grade in WebAssign. So let's see how I do. Turn it on. Yay, it works. So UGA has 35,000 students. 2,000 of them a year take pre-calculus. And for a very long time, they have been using assessment that is machine graded. And I don't mean Scantrons, I mean PCs, and now on the web. So if you think back to when John Risley was starting at NC State, at UGA they were actually building their own homegrown software called JExam at the same time. John Risley's product was apparently more robust because it has survived Vista. And I think that was the key, was getting through Vista. Now, the reason they're using online assessment at UGA is that pre-calculus is taught primarily by instructors who teach 4 or 5 courses a term, and graduate students. And for the graduate student, they're taking a full load of courses, they're teaching one class, and they're also given grading to do for another class. So it's an onerous workload for either the instructor or the grad student who's teaching the course. And so the purpose is twofold. And one of the issues is just to give the teacher some relief from grading. Classes generally hold 40 to 42 students. So they're not doing any grading because all of the assessment's being done online. So we're giving them some relief. The other problem was between instructors and grad students, you had a wide variation in what an A meant and a B meant in terms of preparation for calculus. And this is eliminating that. We're getting some uniform assessment, and we're giving the teacher some relief. So those are the numbers on how many sections I'm taking care of every term. I'm running a whopping 4 of them this summer, but generally during the fall and spring I'm running a lot more. And there's our content. We also use online homework in all of our calculus. It varies which platform we use. I administer the terminal calculus course. That's not business calculus. We don't accept business calculus, but it's almost business calculus. And because I'm administering it, I asked that the platform be the same, so that one's in WebAssign. We are also using a lot of web work. Let's see if this works. Yep. In our assessment, all the problems have randomized numbers, of course. And we get the kids started first by some preparatory homework. So they have some assigned homework. And if you are a teacher who knows what you're doing, this is required. Otherwise, they won't do it. And that homework has help in it. So by help, I mean you get 50 tries. And since after one try we show you the key, you ought to earn 100% on the homework. Okay? There are many kids who don't earn 100%, and that's because they have other things to do. But you ought to earn 100% on the homework. And then we take away all the help for the next stage. That by help, I mean we're using an enhanced book from Cengage so they can look at the book, which means, of course, you only need to pay $47 for this course, which is terrific for a course that is really getting ready for something else. Or you can more likely click on Watch It. That's the one they want. They don't want Read It. They want Watch It, which means show me how this problem is done. And a video comes up, which is essentially Windows Journal with Camtasia, somebody speaking as you see the lines of text appearing that are walking you through a solution without your numbers, with some fixed set of numbers. And then we'll quiz them, and this is still not timed. Every 2 or 3 sections there'll be a web quiz, so each unit will have 2 web quizzes. And we'll ask some similar questions, but without the watch it and the read it and the tutorial or the chat it, help me, help me, help me. Now you've got to actually do the problem, still with your notes, still with your buddies, but you've got to actually do something better, and you only get 3 tries, and there's a penalty if you're not getting it right on the first try. That should get you ready for your 5 tests and your final exam, which are only 2 tries with penalty and a timer. On the web quiz, the test, and the final, we have pooled problems. So in the homework, everybody sees the same problem with different numbers. But on the web quiz, there'll be 2 or 3 problems for each problem number. And on the test, there'll be considerably more, and I'll show you why. When you think about those numbers, you'll have an idea as to why. Okay? In terms of testing, if I'm running 35 sections in the fall, I don't have 35 computer labs. So there is no way you can take the test in class. No way. So what the kid does is enroll, sign up for a test time. We keep a record of that. He shows up with his ID, and then he takes the test in a proctored environment. So he does that outside of class. This also gives us 5 extra hours of class that we would have to give up, so that's really nice. At that test, we're also providing a VTI. That's a virtual TI, so they're not using a handheld calculator. It's on the screen, and they're pressing the buttons with the mouse instead. And at the test, they're going to see some problems they may have seen in homework on a web quiz, and they're also going to see some things that are new. So let's talk about security. To get 800 students through our, what's 40 plus 26? 66 machines with 6 held back, so 60 machines. I need 4 days because the kids have to sign up for a time when they're actually free, and they can't go during their class time, and they have jobs. It's a fact. So we have to run a lot of testing times, and the popular ones, of course, are late night. But we also run some morning ones. So it takes me a while, which means there's a security issue. If I give one problem to everybody, then those kids that took the test first are just kind of not savvy about test taking, because surely they would get the word if they waited till the last possible minute to take the test. So I have to draw questions from a pool, and that pool is going to have to be pretty large. Now, what I do to keep that test secure is that it's in the class the students enrolled in, so they can see it there on their test day. But if they click on it, it says, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong place, you cannot get in. Okay? That test is IP restricted to the testing machines. And they can't get in there without an ID. In the meantime, all their homework and web quizzes are sitting there, and they might get an idea of how to do a problem just by looking at something they already did, and they could be really lucky it could be the same problem. So those assignments have to be IP restricted out of the lab. Yes?
I'm sorry. Can you do the IP restriction within WebAssign?
Yeah, I'm going to show you in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
So this is all taken care of within WebAssign. And that's the security. And I will tell you, I lived through the problem 2 years ago. And I looked at other options when it looked like WebAssign was not going to be able to deliver the product in the fall. And the other options are all, change your password every 15 minutes and your test will be secure. Well, if I know how to break the security, then I know my students do. I walk in with my phone turned on in my pocket and you tell me the password and my buddy out in the hall already knows how to get in. So password protection won't do it. It just won't do it. So I'm very comfortable with IP restriction. Our proctors are actually undergraduate students, and that sounds a little dicey, but they actually really want to find a cheater. So they're pretty good proctors. They're always calling me, and it's like, no, that kid is just nervous. He's feeling his clothes because he's actually nervous. It's like he's not trying to find a cheat sheet. But they're very interested in finding a cheater. And UGA has an honor code. So there's a set process by which we go after cheaters, and the word gets out pretty quickly when we are adjudicating. One final exam, somebody went to the bathroom and took her phone, and this was an extreme violation. So the next final exam period, I said, I really want your phones, as it says in the instructions, on the PC box or in the cubby holes. We are already prosecuting one student. All of a sudden, all these phones came out. So they cared. During the test, I have to tell you, I feel pretty strongly that somebody needs to be nearby to help these undergraduate proctors. The kid suddenly has to throw up, or there's been a kid with a panic attack, or sometimes there are machine issues. Somebody needs to be around who can solve problems. My testing manager's office is very nearby, and he does the bulk of the work. In the evening, we have a graduate student who does this, and I spell these people. I give them some relief. Disability access, those kids generally get double time or time and a half, and so it really doesn't work to test them in the same location because there will be a mass of bodies moving, and this is not an appropriate testing environment, or at least it's not the same testing environment. So they actually go to the Disability Resource Center and take their tests there. And in advance of their test, we have already rescheduled their time so that they have sufficient time to do this. Now, the students will complain and say, WebAssign marked it wrong, or I don't know what's going on here. And if the undergraduate proctors are trained not to give answers. So what do the instructions say is about all they can tell you. And if they're not clear on what to say, they come and get my testing manager or me, and we give some information. But sometimes the student is just convinced that they have the right answer, and usually this is a spelling error. I've spelled T as X, for example. And so we just, well, if you think there's a problem there, make a note on your scratch paper, and there's actually a cover sheet, so they can actually annotate number 5 and say, it marked me wrong, here's what I wrote down. And the teacher has the ability at that point to go back and look at it with the student. Now, I don't want the teacher looking at everybody's test. This is putting the grading back on the teacher, and this is set up so that the teacher is not grading. So the student has to raise the issue. I'm not certain that I've got graded correctly, or maybe I made an entry, and can we talk about it? That's fine. Then the door is open. The teacher has all the scratch papers, and you can have a meaningful discussion at that point. The kid that's made a spelling error, in my class I'm kind of tough. I give the point back the first time and say, now I really don't want you to ask me this again, right? You've figured out that before you click submit next time, you're going to think about whether your answer is appropriate in the context of the question. I want them to learn from the experience. I'm happy to give points back once. I'm kind of a tough teacher. But some teachers will always give those points back. But there's a way for students to get access to override a test score. And so the teacher's holding the scratch until everybody's done, and that usually takes a week. There's some sick kid out there, and we're waiting on him to take his makeup. And once that's done and the teacher has heard from all the students, then he or she will return the scratch paper. And so at that point, you can't say, look, I've got it right on my scratch. It's already been returned. And I will reverse the IP restrictions, and I will release the key at that point. Then the test is available. to the students. So they can see it in their, the comfort of their dorm room or wherever. They can actually look at the test at that point. And at that point, that test is no longer available in the testing lab. I've got 2 trig tests, so I surely don't want, in the second trig test, somebody to be able to look at the first trig test. So I actually have to reverse the IP restrictions from allowed only in this location to disallowed just like a homework set in that location. So we're going to go look at a class. So if you go to the last slide and you want to get in, that's fine. You can self-enroll. The class key is there, so you can self-enroll and make up a name. Or if you want to go in just as Stu 1, Stu 2, sorry, I'm Stu 1. Please don't go in as Stu 1. Stu 2 through 20 are already enrolled in the class. And that information, your Stu 2 at UGA and your password is Stu 2. Now, if everybody goes in as Stu 2, of course, you're going to interfere with your scores. So you can also self-enroll. The class key's in there if you want to go in. I also have a printout of the assignment I want to talk about. So if you just want to relax right now and look at hard copy while I bring it up at the screen, that's fine too, and you could log in later. It's in your folder. Thanks, Peg. UGA. You're all students at UGA right now. Okay, so I'm on the faculty side at the moment, right? No, I'm student 1. So this does not look like a pre-calculus course. This is an amalgam of a bunch of things, and I have an assignment that's mixed content from all over the place because I want to look at some things. At the end, if we have time and you really want to see what pre-calc looks like right now, we can go over to my summer school class. It's fine. So in any course, there would be some welcome message, and my syllabus would be posted right here. I don't need to use Blackboard because everything I need is in WebAssign, and that's terrific for the teachers. Again, this is some relief from work. They're not managing a bunch of systems. So everything is here. In both my pre-calc and my calc that I'm running now, I have a sheet that gives all their purchase options because Cengage is now getting quite liberal. If you buy enhanced WebAssign, you don't have to buy any textbook. And so I list all the options in a file that's posted here because it's pretty intense, the number of options. So I've written it all down so the teachers don't have to write it down, and I post that file there. It's called Purchase Options for this course. And number 1 requirement is you have to buy WebAssign. And here are you can do this at Cengage's microsite, and you can do this here, and you can do this there. So there are a lot of options, and I put that right there. And that's the current book, and that will not be the book in fall because they're going to edition 12. Okay, and so the practice final is if you really want to see what our pre-calculus looks like. Okay. So I put something up. It is not pooled because I do not want to give a lot of problems away before the final exam. So it's here's all the things you better study, and it has a message in there that says this is definitely not enough preparation for the final. So I've covered myself there. But it's password protected, and that's what that thing says. So if you really want to go look at it, you need to know the password. That, again, is on that last slide. It's lucky. But I'm not going there. Just told you about that. Okay. There are 2 homework sets there, one of which is IP restricted. There's a whole bunch of stuff in the past because I've been running this course for my grad students to learn WebAssign before they start teaching for a couple of years now. But I want to go into this illustrative assignment. And if I was running this on my machine, when I clicked on it in Student View, you would say you can't get in because I've actually IP restricted it away from my machine, but I'm running it on this one instead just so that the internet is faster. But that symbol here says this is IP restricted. And so homework 2.7 would be IP restricted away, and this assignment would be IP restricted to. Okay? So you want to see that? So let me just go over and be a teacher for a minute and show you what that looks like. Here we go. So in schedule, when you're scheduling the assignment, all I do is decide where this assignment should be. Okay? And for me, for the most part, the assignments are not allowed someplace. I'm keeping almost everything out of the testing room. And if I only have 2 IP addresses, I would type them in. I always have 80. I told you 66 machines. They're also the ones at Disability Resource Center. So I have the whole list, and I upload it right here. And it's terrific. It saves me lots of work. Now, I don't use strings of IPs. I don't use wildcards. And I don't have my lab named all the same machine. And I can tell you why later. Okay. But it just uploads, and then I save. I also time my assignments. So I click on timing. And tests, by the way, are 75 minutes. The final is 150. And the proportion of problems is 2 to 1. I have a colleague, by the way, who uses the group assignments very effectively. So that's how it's done. And it really is not a big deal. So let's go back and be Stu 1 and take a look at this. The illustrative assignment is password protected, and this is WAUG capitals, WAUG. There we go. Okay. And so you have a hard copy of this if you don't want to pull it up. I have some, in the instructions, I actually wrote some comments about the types of test questions you would write. Okay. And I love question 1. Let me read it if you're not finding your hard copy or the print is too small. It says, find the domain of f. F of x is square roots of 3x plus 6. And it's multiple choice, and that's a lovely problem 1, because A, it's multiple choice, and B, it's straightforward, and there aren't a lot of tricks. You're not multiplying by negative number, for example, and worrying about your inequality sign. This is totally easy. Okay. Now I want to compare that to problem 2. The radical is 3x plus 6. Your numbers may vary if you're logged in, right? Because you have random numbers. So I'm not going to draw the same numbers you are, which is good if you're taking a test right next to me. Okay. Problem 2 was written by me recently because I gave what is problem 3 on a test recently, and the teachers cried foul. Said, oh, we didn't teach enough there. They need to learn. I said, okay, I can write that learning question. And one of the teachers helped me write this problem. What are all the things that could catch a student? Let's make it all multiple choice, and let's let them learn in the process. And we came up with these set of examples of what can go wrong in a domain when you have a denominator. So we built this, a teacher and I built this question together. And it arose out of the teachers feeling there wasn't a homework problem from the book, and there wasn't an aha moment with their students yet with the problems we had. So this was a really great moment for me, and that's that kind of coding I like to do when somebody says, I need a problem, it needs to teach them this, and it should look like this. Then I was like, okay, no problem, I can code that real quick. So there's some learning that goes on in this problem. Does everybody agree this is not a test problem? I don't want them to learn during the test, I want them to demonstrate learning. So I might ask them one of these pieces, but certainly not all of them. Problem 3 is much harder than problem 1. Because here, I've got a bunch of functions, and it's not multiple choice anymore, it's multiple select. Which means the kid has to identify every answer that is correct and not misidentify an answer. And there's no hint in the red X as to why you've gotten that red X. I'm not saying I never ask a question like this. This is the one that the teacher said, we got to help the kids learn a little bit more before they can do a good job on your test. I like this problem. It's certainly not going to be problem 1 on my test. There's a lot of difficulty in this problem because I have to make sure I've got everything. This is a higher level problem than what I'd consider that problem 1, a C level problem to be. I'd say this is B plus A minus problem because I've got to find them all. Yes?
Using Microsoft Equation 3.0?
No, actually, I'm using tech there. I put some tech in. Okay. So his question was, I'm sorry, I should have repeated the question. The question was, how did I typeset those functions? And I'm actually doing it in tech. You do brackets LaTeX and start typing, and then you close it off. Now, problems, let's make sure I get this right. 4, 5, and 6 are what I would consider a vanilla problem on a test. This is where did you learn the basics of this unit? And this unit is all over the place. I grabbed content from all over pre-calculus for this. Okay. So problem 4 is, can you find the equation of a line if I give you a point and some information by which you deduce the slope? Vanilla. If you were breathing and you were paying attention and you prepared for the test, I want you to get this right, and I actually want you to get it right on the first try. But if you've made a small error, I'll give you a second try for 75%. Okay. By the way, problem 5, which says find the values of the 6 trigonometric functions for the angle theta in terms of b and or c, was supposed to be problem 1 on a test, and it freaked out all the students. So sometimes what we think is vanilla and trivial is we were surprised. They couldn't handle this problem. Do you know why? There's no way. Yes, there is. I know the Pythagorean theorem. It's like step 1 of this problem is the Pythagorean theorem. But they were really freaked out by this problem. And so only by using a problem do you actually learn something about your students. So nowadays, this problem actually shows up someplace before it shows up on a test. Otherwise, we actually know what kind of grade they're going to get on this problem. By the way, if this problem is rewritten, where b and c are actually numbers, randomized numbers, they have no problem with this problem as problem 1. Spelled b and c, it's actually harder than we imagined. This is vanilla 2. Would you not agree? I mean, I don't know how else to ask. Period, amplitude, phase shift, but you ask. If it was on a test, I would likely duplicate this problem. This is a textbook problem, and throw out the graph and just ask those 3 pieces, although I've actually coded my own. And of course, you can do that. If you're using a textbook, you can duplicate a problem and use it. You're honoring their copyright by requiring the kids to buy WebAssign, which is a contract with Cengage. So that's okay. But we have a graphing calculator test, so I really don't want to ask the 4th part, identify the graph. That's just asking this, which I'm not interested in during this test. 7 is the difference quotient. And I ask this problem because on every test I'm committed to a problem that uses 2 or more algebra steps in the problem, because they're going to calculus. And every problem is going to require 2 or more algebra steps. The trouble with the transition from pre-calc to calc is really that they just can't get all the way through. And we need to work on getting them there. So I'm committed to, and it's from teaching calc at UGA and seeing what they need, that I got very committed that on my tests I would always have an algebra multi-step problem. So that's there. Now it's not so bad, right? It's multiple choice. So if your answer isn't there, maybe you've made an error before you even answer. I wanted to compare and contrast 8 and 9. 8 is a textbook problem, and 9 is my version of such a question. Both are solving a trig equation. Number 8 is excellent for homework, or even a web quiz. I don't object to it on a web quiz, but it lends itself to gaming. And I really don't want to encourage that for test behavior. The right way to game this question is put none in the last answer box. If there aren't 6 solutions, 6, then I get that point for free, just by gaming. And if there are 6 solutions, I've only given up 1 answer box, 1 try on that last answer box, and I've actually found something out. My question 9 just says, give me all the answers in this domain and list them separated by commas. And so I have told them nothing, and gaming gets them nothing, except for the gaming where I'm sure it's got some pies in it, so let me put pie in. You might be lucky, right? I have a calculator. I know how to do this problem by guess and check, but I still don't know if I have all the answers by guess and check. So there are times when a textbook question just isn't right, put together right for a test. And so you need to learn how to do a few bits of coding to get those. All right, so I'm done with this, so let me hop back over to the slides. And so I have a list here of some of the issues we've already talked about. And I'll just add a couple more points to this summary. I really like to write my tests in non-randomized order. This is a nice feature that WebAssign offers, but for testing, I really don't want to do that. The reason I don't want to do that is on a paper test, normally you walk through the content. I don't need to throw any more curveballs at the student who's taking a test in math, and I'm making him sit at a computer. He's already doing 2 tasks. Normally at a pencil and paper task, you're doing one task, and that is the mathematics. Now I also have to think how to articulate my mathematics in an answer box to the computer and to deal with the stress of a timer and somebody telling me instantly how it's graded. So I don't want to stress that kid out anymore. So that's why I don't randomize the order. I do like to start with something multiple choice or easy, and I do actually fudge the order a little bit, but I float the word problems to the end. And that's because a kid can actually, if the word problem is problem 3, might grind to a halt on that problem and not manage their time effectively. When there is reading, they tend to slow down. So I do float those to the bottom. Now, of course, the kid can scroll through the test and devise a good test-taking plan, but I have a lot of freshmen, and they may not be up to snuff yet. And for vanilla, what I would call a vanilla question, those 4, 5, and 6 that we looked at, I think it's perfectly fine to repeat a homework or a web quiz problem. There's really not that many ways to ask those questions, so I don't worry about that. I do purposely save some word problems that they haven't seen, or some conceptual questions that they haven't seen, and use them on tests. Now this is pretty hard to do, and I'll show you in a minute that it's hard to do, so I'm constantly writing questions for that. And I told you about the algebra. You have the option in WebAssign of revealing the problem name on assignments. That is always turned off in my class. That actually reveals information, and the information is what kind of problem am I looking at, and that's a skill that I'm hoping the student will develop. So I don't want that ever turned on in my class. And I turn off the red numbers for the same reason, because kids will memorize, you take that number and it goes here, and that number and that goes here, and that's how you write the answer. I've actually seen this done, and if you look in the practice final where I'm fitting an exponential curve to 2 data points, neither of which is on the y-axis, the girl said, I memorized this. You take this number goes here, this number goes here, and then you write ln, and you write a division bar. They're gaming again. So the red number is actually entitled that. So if I'm trying to, for homework, it would be fine, but for testing, I don't want to do that. And so we talked about the different types of problems. On my tests, I'm actually committed to all the questions having a calc pad, because I don't care if the kid writes 1/2 or 2/4 or 12 minus 2 over 5. Sorry. Invert that. 1 over 12 minus 2 over 5. I want symbolic answers to be preferred. So the kid who doesn't want to stop and massage, I want that kid to get full credit. So and I don't want them to have to stop and look, how do I type this answer in? So I sometimes have to duplicate textbook problems and change the answer blank so that it's all the same. I want that not to be part of the testing experience. And we talked about this already. And then your problem bank needs to be pretty darn big, because they will talk over days, so you need a lot of problems in each pool. And once I've given the test, next term, that test is out there. Those problems that I hid are already not hidden problems. So I want to give you a couple examples of that. No, that's coming. That's coming. I do, is that right? Did I miss a slide? Nope, it's coming, I guess. Yes, it's at the bottom of this one. I do actually keep an Excel file to track what I asked and when. So the period amplitude phase shift is an example problem. Next term, I might ask, find the coordinates of the first maximum turning point on this curve instead. And I keep track of that so that the kids can't predict quite so much what I'm going to ask. The problem that's been on test 1, 3 terms in a row, in the 4th term, the teachers know that it's going to be there, the students who are repeating know, and therefore all the students know. So that problem needs to be replaced. So I do track that in an Excel file. I also have a course called The Attic, and this is courtesy of John Risley taught me to do this. That's where all my problems that I have coded lie. By section, they're assignments. Well, there are no students in this course. There are only teachers given access. So So the teachers can see every problem I've ever written, organized by section. They can also, of course, see all the textbook problems using the usual search. So that's all set for them, and they don't have to do any work to look at that. The pools and the problem banks need to be really large because in the old days, you just had frats who had filing cabinets with hard copy of tests. Nowadays, you have this. This website is called studyblue.com. The other big one that I know of is koofers.com. And if you know of others, I'd like to know, because I do like to be aware. Kids will scan and post their objects. Okay? This is supposed to be a study guide. Well, I'm sorry, it's a copy of a test. And there is no way to keep this from happening. There's no point in trying. We have to do something different.
Have you actually seen your tests in either of these two sites?
This is my pre-calc test score.
Have you challenged them on copyright? Write them a letter and tell them that they're violating copyright. Most sites will take them down if you do that. Because it's your materials, you wrote it.
The student is entitled to print out their test.
No, it's your copyright. They cannot have it posted in a public place.
So did everybody hear this? Let me just repeat what John said. We write to the website and say, you have copyrighted materials up there. Anything of the form, test 4 or test n.doc or .anything attached to Math 1113 is copyrighted to me. You are in violation of my copyright. Thank you very much. That's really great info. Okay.
Let us know if they don't take it down.
It's good to know. By the way, to get onto Koofers, you have to have a Facebook page, which means you can be found by your students. So it's kind of annoying. Anything else about this? Yes?
Does this happen because you released the test afterwards and so then
Yes.
back to it?
Yes.
If you didn't release the test afterwards and used something like a lockdown browser, then
You could lock that test out permanently.
and your reasoning for not doing that?
I would like the student to learn from their errors, and they can't learn from their errors if all they have is a score. I would like this to be as much like the calculus course where they walk away with their paper graded test as possible. Yes?
Are you copyrighted because you wrote in WebAssign, or do you have to file paperwork?
Want the mic?
I mean, the copyright law is actually very generous for authors. Once you write it, you own the copyright. You don't have to claim it. You don't have to register it. So by stating that I wrote those questions, they're mine, that is sufficient. Now, whether or not they will do it, it remains to be seen. But there's another site called Cramsters, and Cramsters claims that they'll take it down. And I did that with one person. We haven't verified whether or not they've taken his questions down, but it's certainly, they know they're in violation.
By the way, a fraternity is also in violation of the national requirements if they save paper copies. So, yes?
So if you randomize your questions and the randomization's sort of random enough, you can trace which student actually did that.
With 800 kids, that's going to be really hard. The data is terrific. I can now gather stuff like this, which makes, of course, program review extraordinarily happy. The new teachers in particular can grab their class average and their median and compare to what I tell them is the aggregate for all the students. I thought you might like to see our numbers. This was fall 2010. And we dropped from 1353 to 1188 by the end of the term. There is some good news in that. 50 of those 160 some that did not survive to the end actually moved down one level to the course that's not for university credit, but is Get Ready for Pre-Calculus. Pre-Calculus is the lowest level course we offer at UGA. We have a Math for Poets as well, but you cannot transfer in credit any lower. But we do have a lower course, and so 50 of them go, and they go right here between Test 2 and Test 3. Between Test 1 and Test 2, we actually have students who switch sections from our usual 3-day-a-week, 3-hour course to a 5-day-a-week, 5-hour but 3-credit-hour course. The university is actually providing something for the students there. It's a really great opportunity for them to get that extra help that they need. Those students usually succeed. It's really nice. If you look at the means, look at the final. It tells us a lot. The students are cramming for the tests and memorizing how to do some problems. And to get into UGA is pretty hard, so they're doing a pretty good job of it. But that does not manifest at the final. You can't cram 5.5 units worth of material. This is actually doing a pretty good job of measuring learning. Our final exam, by the way, counts 25% in this course. So we're actually finding out how much they learned at the end of the term. It's quite a shock to our freshmen, by the way. All right, so I want to talk about acts of God or acts of human. There are some things that can mess this up, and here they are. I, as the course administrator, and my testing manager and his graduate student assistant actually have access to every class that's taught, in addition to the teacher that's teaching that particular section. Now, the kid that is sick or who has athletics and misses the test, this is no problem. We extend the deadline. He goes and takes it. My testing manager proctors him. That's no problem. But you have these other problems that appear while the student's already in the test. All of these have happened at UGA. Kid had a panic attack. Kid had to leave to throw up now. The power went out because they were right outside and they cut the line. We had a tornado warning with 5 minutes to go. WebAssign has gone down, and it's always on my test day. And the campus internet has been slowed down to epsilon speed by somebody downloading music. So all of these have happened, and so I actually know how to fix this now, and it took me a while to learn how to fix this. You can't give the kid another test, and once that timer is started, that timer runs till it runs out. So there's a problem there. Whoops. So here's what I do. After I've made the test, I actually duplicate it, and the only thing that changes in the duplicate is the title and its category. It's not a test anymore. It's a category called makeup. And I schedule them both, and they're scheduled in the future, so the kid can't see that there are 2 versions of the test out there. And then I go in and I unclick available. So there's a hidden second copy of the same test. So the kid that had to throw up now, that's okay. We got another test for you. Let's schedule it again. And then we bring it up. We actually make it available in that class, and the kid takes it. And the understanding is this second score is going to be your score. There's no, I'm going to take the better score or anything like that. Now, the kid that's experienced one of these difficulties has not made the difficulties. So if he's lucky enough to draw the same problem from the pool, that's fine. We're okay with that. Okay? Sometimes we're not certain this kid really deserves this, so we will actually go and see what problems he drew and build a special test just for him where we pull out all of those problems. But it's great. So then all the teacher has to do is override the original test score, and we're set. It's really great. Stuff happens. So I want to say a few more things about testing security. Your instructions need to be clear. If you don't want them clicking on the Google box, well, then your instructions better say the only window that you can have open is WebAssign. Or you need lockdown browser, or you need to have set up your machine so that the only website that's available in that room, in that particular boot of that machine, is WebAssign. You need to set things up properly. We didn't have that in the fall. We have it now. But what we did every day was we actually checked the cache of every machine at the end of the day. And so you can see when somebody used Google, and that comes with a timestamp, and you know the IP address of that machine. And then my testing manager just went through the 20 students who were taking the test at that time, and you can check on the log in WebAssign and see who was on that machine. We prosecuted 5 cases, and they were all guilty. So we got them. But you don't want to do that. So you want to actually lock your browser down, either in WebAssign or in your machines. You got to really proctor actively, because the trouble with a phone in your pocket is the kids are so well trained. If it's buzzing, they look to see who it is. And once they've done that, you can't tell that they weren't cheating. So that phone needs to not be on their person, which means that needs to be on your instructions, so that you don't have to deal with that. It takes me a while to reverse the IP restrictions, but that's my job. You really need a lot of problems in each pool. I can't say that often enough. All the time, I'm interested in new problems. Every time I teach calculus, I'm thinking about how I could make that into a pre-calculus problem. I look at it and say, ooh, I could do this, and they would be ready when they got to calculus. Let me just tell you a little bit about STAT, because when I got to UGA, and I'm very intimidated by those of you with the 6 years of experience, because I've only been doing this for 3 years. Chandler Pike runs STAT in WebAssign at UGA, and she does a marvelous job, but she runs it very differently than I do. The kids do not ever see their test except in the lab. It's never released, so she's keeping them out of the pool. And the reason she's doing that is she cannot find a way to satisfy her fellow statisticians to use randomized numbers in a data set. So her problems, everybody's seeing the same problem when she's testing, but she's testing. And so I'm really impressed by the work she does. She tests everybody in 1 day, morning through night, but she has more labs than I do. So that's how she's running it. She ran into a very interesting problem, and I don't know how to get around the security leak. She had 2 students log in twice during their test, once as themselves and once as their buddy, and they were all working the same test problem. So they could look at their buddy's result. And how many of you are logged in as Stu 2 right now? So I know this is happening right now. Okay. So that, I think, the only thing you can do is say in your testing requirements, again, is it is a violation of the honor policy to give your login to somebody else. And that's all you can do, and she was lucky enough to catch it. I don't know how you catch it either, because you don't want to look at everybody's downloads.
If you're using Lockdown Browser, I think you can't log in twice. If that was
Well, so then the kid just logs out and logs in and logs out and logs in. I know how to cheat. Yes?
Oh, boy. I mean, that's an engineering question as to why. I mean, you could make it so that you can only log in once, but then if your browser goes down, you have multiple browsers up there, you're going to be locked out. It's a terrible user experience. I think all the UX people would say that would be a very, very bad experience. It's technically you can do it. Some people in the beginning did that, but who asked that question? Oh yeah, right. I mean, some systems did do that in the beginning, but I think everybody's opted out of that because of this issue of it's a bad user experience.
I do know as a teacher, I'm always logged in 2 or 3 times, because I'm looking at student view, and I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at that. And I don't mean a Stu 1. I mean logged in as myself 2 or 3 times. I won't.
As the engineers would say, anything is possible. And then they could pay. You know? So, yeah. I mean, if there was a great uproar and thousands of teachers wanted it, we would certainly do it. But it's not. It isn't that big. There's other workarounds that are probably more practical.
I think the biggest problem for us testers is the kid will be studying in the library and come over to take their test and forget to log out, and then not be able to take their test. So, I want to finish on time just because that'll make them happy. It's my job as the administrator to make that learning accessible to students and make teaching the course as painless as possible for the teachers. And so I want to take that clip home and put it on my desktop because it reminds me sometimes when I'm annoyed by the work I have to do. This is really what I'm there to do. And you can shift some work to the teachers, but not if you're testing, because Propagate is a lovely tool, but it doesn't move IP restrictions and timers and et cetera around. So I have to do that for them. I always need new problems. I do some work for the teachers to help them out by creating, I've made some how-to files so that they don't have to go through the help menu. It's just like, I really need to know how to put my syllabus up. Here it is. I really need this. So I give them just the things that they know. I also need to do some file management in WebAssign. If I have 35 sections of pre-calc and another 16 of terminal calculus, I cannot go to my assignments and find something. So I have learned to file in my old age. And WebAssign's pretty good. Now, there are a lot of tools that WebAssign has that I don't use. It's very powerful, and I admire these tools greatly. But my first job is to say, what is my goal and what supports that goal? The technology should not be driving the teaching. It's always the other way around, to me. The teachers don't have to grade, but the downside is they are stuck on a schedule. You cannot postpone a test. You cannot omit content for a test date. You have to cover the content by that test date. There's no question about that. But some teachers do some really nice things with the WebAssign exercises in their teaching. Some people do it in lab format. When I teach, I tend to borrow some questions and dump them into Word and make lovely handouts, and that saves me time in class and saves the kid writing down a word problem as well. And I really like that. The teacher who is teaching for the first time is definitely at a disadvantage with somebody who's already taught on a lockstep schedule. And not needing Blackboard is terrific. These are cleaned up quotes from students. English is better. The student is sure that the computer is making them get problems wrong, which means part of your job as teacher when you're going to test is to convince them that WebAssign is actually helping you out. If I have to pick out the graph, even if I don't have a graphing calculator, of a trig function, I print it out and we look at it and say, look, now how many of these multiple choices are actually active on this problem? Well, only 3, because 3 are tangent, cotangent types and 3 are secant, cosecant types. And so it's either these or these. And once I figured that out, I've got 3 graphs and 2 choices on a test. I darn well better earn some points. And if I ask them on paper to draw it, I might be a little bit more picky than that. So I do try to convince them that WebAssign is their friend. I also try to convince them they need to experiment in homework. Am I allowed to answer just one part? Somebody said, I didn't know that. It's like, yes, you did. You try it in homework. You find out. They need to learn. They should be doing some gaming to improve their grade. Okay? This kid, I want in my class every time. And you get one in your course of hours every term, but only one. The one who thinks recognizes the homework actually helped them out. Things we want to do in the future, there's so much power out there. I've actually volunteered. We're going to go build some gateway quizzes in WebAssign for the calculus course I supervise. We want to use this data that we're getting to monitor student difficulties and use them as predictors for remediation. And they already do that in the good old-fashioned J exam in chemistry, so I want to learn from my own department, and I also want to learn from KSU and from Illinois, U of Illinois that's using Alex to do this. And I want to develop some show my work. The trouble with show my work in my case is that I'm supposed to be eliminating grading for teachers. And show my work requires grading by teachers. So I'm trying to find the happy medium because I would like to add that in. Okay, there are costs. Don't go home and say, we're ready to do this. Make sure you get support for the cost that's involved. You need some time to develop a pilot course so you can get through some of the issues before you ramp up to everybody. And so somebody better provide you some time to build your test course, to get your problem sets in order, and to outline your test protocols before you start running your pilot course. And during your pilot course, you've got to fix problems, and then you've got to ramp up the number of exercises you have. So that costs money as well. And the subsequent terms, once things start running, basically I'm just looking to build new problems all the time and fill holes where learning is not happening the way we expect, like that problem I built that I showed you. The hidden cost to me, this just hit me, was new text editions. Cengage is changing books, and it's 4% new problems and 100% new problems for me, but WebAssign is working with me to make a seamless transition, which I really appreciate. Yes? I can. I can stick with the old edition. I did tell Cengage, because they're custom pubbing for us, that we would continue to sell the old version of the book, because the hard copy is the hard copy, and the fact that they've updated one table from 1990 to 2000 is not enough of a reason for me to require a different textbook. But the kid that's shopping around is going to pay just $47, so I don't care which edition I use, and if Cengage wants me to upgrade, I'll upgrade. It's a good question. All right, so at the back I put data that you want, but we don't have time to talk about. What's our book? How many tests do we give? How is it penalized? What's the content of my course? Particularly in chemistry, you don't care. And the information, so if later on you want to go and play in this course, you can, but you can only do it until July 15th. right, I'm over time, so we won't take any questions.